Hello everyone, this is Vanshika Tainwala, legal intern on the Lexis and Company for the month of June. And today in this video, I will be talking about the topic, the doctrine of vicarious liability. So what is the doctrine of vicarious liability? I will be talking about what are the provisions regarding it in the Indian Contract Act and how it is regulated in India. So basically, under the concept of vicarious liability, one person is held responsible for the wrong which is committed by the other. So it is also known by the name of joint liability. So vicarious liability can occur under both the criminal law and the civil laws. So such a liability arises only when there is some legal relationship between the two parties, or the parties are somehow connected to each other, such as principal agent, master servant, such relationships. So the tort law or civil law. Under the tort law or civil law, there are some essential conditions which need to be fulfilled in order to constitute the vicarious liability. So first is the relationship. There must be some relationship between the wrongdoer and the other party who is taking such responsibility, taking such liability. So the relationship can be of principal agent, as I told you, employer-employee, master-servant, and other relationships. So under the service, there are two categories: contract of service and contract for service. These both terms are very interchangeably used, but these two are very different in nature. So contract of service means where one person is already under the contract of another and the service is of particular nature. So this is a kind of general contract, and there is not many limitations on the controlling power over the another. For instance, master-servant relationship, where there are not limitations on the controlling power. The controlling power is like unlimited sort of thing. The contract for service, it is a contract for a particular purpose. So, and there is a limitation on the controlling power over the act for another. For instance, employer and employee relationship. This is contract for service, and that was contract of service. The next essential condition is ratification. So under torts or civil law, a person may also be liable for the wrongful acts or omissions of some other party in the following ways. First, if the person abets the wrongful act or omission committed by the such other person. Second is if the former person ratifies or authorizes such act knowing that the act committed will be tortious in nature. Third, as standing towards the party who committed a wrong in such a relation that it entails responsibility for the act or omissions done by the other person. So the concept of in the course of employment also comes into the play when the doctrine of vicarious liability is invoked. So an act is deemed to be done in the course of employment if the authority to give a wrongful act is given by the master to the servant, or of some legal act is done by the servant in an illegal way. So what are the reasons why we hold the principle of vicarious liability? First is the respondent superior. So this principle follows that let the principal or master be responsible as the act was done by the servant or the employee in the course of the employment. The second one is the damages. For the purpose of giving the damages to the aggrieved party and in order to stop the blame game between the servant and the master, this doctrine has been come upon. The third is the avoiding the exploitation of the servant. So master is also held liable for the acts of the servant, because many times the masters exploit their servants by first directing the servants to do some tortious act and then firing them to avoid the responsibility. The next is the qui facet alium facet per se. Any act which is done by the servant in the course of his employment is considered to be done by the master, and in principle means that the master has done the act. So this was all under the civil law. So coming on to the criminal law, under criminal law also one person can be liable for the act of the other if he is a party to the offence. For instance, a driver of a car which goes and robs a bank will also be liable even though the driver did not come out of the car. So this principle is followed in the criminal law, is a person will be held liable as a principal offender even though the actus reus was committed by some other person. So the person committing the act on the instruction of other will not be considered as innocent and will also be held as liable. So law focuses basically on the relationship between the two parties. So under section 149 of the IPC, it states that if any member of an unlawful assembly commits offence in furtherance of a common objective, every member of that unlawful assembly will be liable. And section 154 relates to the occupiers or owners of the land. If such occupier or owner or any person who has some interest in the peace of the land and does not inform the proper public authority about the unlawful assembly on such land or do not take necessary actions which are required, so he will also be liable for such activity. So these were the basic concept of the vicarious liability. So the state are also responsible for the act done by the employers, such as the licensee and his liabilities are also responsible. So to conclude, we can say that the concept of vicarious liability is a civil one, but with the evolution of law, the doctrine has been applicable in criminal cases also by the court. Sometimes it becomes very important in order to fix a liability on the principal in order to protect the interest of the aggrieved party, and also to avoid the blame game which happens between the parties, which in turn delays the justice of the people. So this was the whole concept of the doctrine of vicarious liability. Hope you understood this topic. Thank you for listening. Have a good day.